We'll be discussing first shortest remaining time. So let us start with the shortest remaining time. As is the name, right? So in this scheduling algorithm, what is going to happen is that just like the shortest job first, the process requiring the shortest period of time for execution will be the first to get the CPU, isn't it? If you recall our discussion in shortest job first, so the process having the smallest CPU burst gets a chance for execution in shortest job first, isn't it? So same logic is applied here, and the preemptive shortest job first, it is nothing but the shortest remaining time next scheduling. So this shortest remaining time next is nothing but the preemptive shortest job. Here, what is the logic? Again, the same logic is there, that if newly arrived process has a less execution as compared to the currently executing process, then the CPU will be given to the newly arrived process, isn't it? And that is nothing but the preemption. Means say suppose if a job is working and a smaller job comes up, then the current job is preempted or interrupted and the smaller job is given the CPU. And that is the logic of the shortest job, isn't it? So we will solve this. So here what is there? Arrival time is there, 4 processes are there, and this is our burst time. Now if you look at this, the shortest job seems to be the P2. This is the first shortest job. Then if you observe, second is this P3. Then third shortest job is P1 and the fourth is the P4. Now as is our usual case, first we will draw the Gantt chart. Observe here. Now at 0 millisecond, first job P1 arrived. Now at 0 millisecond, no other job is there. Now if you look at the overall picture, so P2 seems to be the smallest. But at 0 millisecond, P2 has not arrived, isn't it? And since at 0 millisecond, only one job is there, that is P1, it will be given a chance for execution. But here the thing is that the P1 will execute for 1 millisecond. Why? Because after 1 millisecond, P2 has arrived in the system and it is having the smaller CPU burst as compared to the P1. So after executing for 1 millisecond, this P1 will be interrupted, okay? And who will get the next CPU? P2 will get the next CPU. Next, if you observe, one by one all the processes are coming. So next CPU who will get P2. Now after coming into 1 millisecond, after second millisecond, right, the system will again observe P3 has arrived, but it is having the CPU burst of 8 milliseconds. So this is more than this current process. So P2 will not be preempted. Now after the 3 millisecond, so P4 will arrive, but it is having the CPU burst of 15 milliseconds. So this will not be preempted, isn't it? So this P2 will be completed without any preemption, right? Now if you observe, it is having the CPU burst of 5. So it will execute non-stop for 5 milliseconds. Now after this, which is the next CPU burst? P3, isn't it? So after P2, next CPU burst that will be executed is a P3 for 8 milliseconds. So this will be 6 plus 8, 14. Next, if you observe, only 2 jobs are remaining, P1 and P4. Now earlier, this P1 was executed for 1 millisecond. So how much time is remaining? 9. 9 and 15. So which is smaller? P1. So after P3, once again, P1 will be executed for 9 milliseconds. and it will terminate at 23 milliseconds. And after P1, next job that will be executed will be the P4, isn't it? Last one remaining. So this will execute for 15 milliseconds. So at the end of 38 milliseconds, all the processes will be executed one by one. Now first, let us calculate the waiting time for each process, and then we will calculate the turnaround time. Now observe here how the waiting time of first process P1 is calculated. Now this P1 was executed twice into the system. So at both the times, its waiting time has to be calculated, isn't it? So first, when in the system P1 came, so its execution started with 0, it entered at 0. So first will be 0 minus 0, so that will be done. Now, at this point, at 0 millisecond, the entire burst was not executed, isn't it? Second time also, it was given a chance to execute the 9 millisecond. So the starting time of the second time P1 is 14, right? And at what time actually the system has given up the CPU at 1, isn't it? So it will be 14 minus 1. So waiting time for process P1 will be 0 minus 0 for this, and for this second time it will be 14 minus 1. Next, calculate the waiting time for process P2. Now P2, if you observe, its arrival time is 1, and when it started execution 1. So it is 1 minus 1. And in this Gantt chart, next time it was not given a chance, isn't it? Hence, waiting time is nothing but 1 minus 1. Consider for process P3. So it started execution at 6 milliseconds. And when it has arrived in the system at 2 milliseconds. So it will be 6 minus 2 is equals to 4. What about the P4? It started executing at 23. And when it came into the system, 3 milliseconds. So it will be 23 minus 3 is equals to 20. Let us calculate the average. It will be 13 plus 0 plus 4 plus 20, and it comes out to be 37 divided by 4, that is the number of processes. So average waiting time is 9.25 milliseconds. Then next we will calculate the turnaround time, that is completion time minus arrival time. So again we will refer the same Gantt chart. For P1, the process ended at 23. Arrival time is 0. So it is 23 minus 0. Then turnaround time for process P2, it ended at 6. It came into the system at 1. So 6 minus 1 is equals to 5. What about P3? It ended at 14. It came into the system 2. So 14 minus 2. So that is nothing but the 12. And the last one is the P4. So it completed at 38. It came into the system as 3. So 38 minus 3 is equals to 35. So what is the average waiting turnaround time? So it is 23 plus 5 plus 12 plus 35. So divided by number of processes, that is 4. So it comes out to be 75, and the answer is 18.75 milliseconds.